So I have Sean McDonough over here, and this is again the Dallas location of 365 EduCon conference. And Sean's have quite a few speaking sessions over here, all dealing with all kind of different technologies, talking about .NET, full trust, low code, and intranets as well. So Sean, how's it been? Can you shed some light on what you've been speaking on?
Sure. Yesterday I had a session on what you need to know before you write your SharePoint disaster recovery plan. I've been giving talks on disaster recovery for a number of years, and now that we're in the cloud, a lot of people are in the cloud, kind of the dynamics have changed. You know, do you rely on your cloud provider? What can you do on your own to safeguard your data, that sort of thing. That was yesterday. Today was on aspect-oriented programming, which is language independent, but I showed in the case of Microsoft.NET using PostSharp, which is a wonderful tool from Sharp Crafters, and has a free version which enables you to do these things. And then tomorrow I've got a session basically on all of the different development options that folks have available to themselves nowadays, and whether or not we should be using full trust code, JavaScript only solutions, should I build Power Apps and use things like Power Automate in my code that I might be writing, and guidance on situations to avoid, as well as strengths and relative weaknesses of some of those different techniques.
These are some really awesome sessions and some really great tools. And I remember, all that disaster recovery and, bleeding through the whole night, and just regretting not doing disaster recoveries or not having a proper plan. So I think that it actually adds a lot of value, to have a proper recovery plan. And on the some of the other things that you mentioned, and especially on defining the right guidelines and matrix for having the right choice of tool, for your application, that's very, very important. Could you shed some more light on it? Because I see that some of these applications that are being developed, and some of these tools, like for example, Power Apps, is some of the development that's being done is like enterprise level, but maintenance becomes so tough. So the right choice, you got to know the right tool for the right situation. Can you shed some light on that?
Sure. Microsoft, it's no secret that Microsoft has been pushing more and more for what they're terming citizen developers to be able to build solutions without necessarily having formal development knowledge and processes. And so we've got tools like Power Automate, Power Apps that can be used. But there's also, if you come from a development background, there's the idea of, if you started with SharePoint, you're probably very familiar with full trust, compiled code solutions that run on the server, which aren't cloud friendly. We can't use them in the cloud. But nowadays, in fact, I just had a guy in my session who got started with SharePoint no more than 4 years ago, and the entire world is JavaScript to him.
Right.
And so where you might want to use those kind of depend on what you're trying to accomplish. It also depends on your own personal skill set. I do find that many of the low-code power tools can be very useful in many circumstances, particularly Power Automate. That is our more or less direct replacement for SharePoint workflows. So having some of those skills is good. And we're just now, I'd say, starting to address some of the problems that you were talking about that tend to show up in enterprises. What am I doing to control my code? How do I deploy this stuff and reuse it? I got an email from a guy not too long ago. He has a solution for deploying Power Automates to various lists and libraries, and he's bringing this solution out, and he's very interested in getting feedback on it. This is something I'm going to get into. But I'm very happy to see those sorts of things coming out too, because those address some of the major concerns that formal IT shops have with power tools. They want to give the users the ability to do these things, but they can't just do it in any way. They've got to control source code, have formal deployment plans, treat different environments differently. So
Definitely, yeah, I know what you're saying. Last question, where's home?
these days it's Cincinnati, Ohio, but I know you and I share a bit of background about Connecticut.
We definitely do. Well, thank you so much, Sean, for your time.
My pleasure.